Hey folks, MasakoX here. The Dragonball Super Manga is back, and I know a lot of you had different Dragon Ball things to discuss last week. But yeah, Toyotaro is back with that little side story that was promised to us a while ago, and we shall now take a look at it today. Basically, it's a prequel to the superhero arc, which will cover the origin of Saiyaman X1 and X2, which means it is the Goten and Trunks show once again. And you know what? That's kind of neat. Even with us poking some holes in some of the elements in their last adventure, overall, it was neat to see more of this particular era of Dragon Ball. Consider that is basically largely unexplored. And also, gives us the protagonist reins to someone that isn't called Goku or Vegeta. So, what exactly goes down in chapter 104? Well, we see a group of alien invaders covering the entire world in crud and sludge. Oh, I love how one of the passers-by is just like, ooh, how unsanitary. He got a little chuckle out of us. Still, who will be the one to save poor Earthlings from this predicament? Well, it's no one else than Clean God. Of course we are watching the Clean God show together with Goten and Trunks. It's also apparently getting a movie. A superhero movie, if you get what I mean. Anyway, perhaps unsurprisingly, Trunks isn't all that invested in the character and calls him dated, whilst Goten is fanboying madly about the hero and pointing out that his vintageness is part of his charm. Anyway, we didn't dwell over this for too long, as the very next morning we followed the boys to school. Apparently, Trunks' class has a field trip today to the museum, and it's anything but boring, but because we got some really good Easter eggs, especially if you're a fan of this channel. It isn't just any museum, as in fact we are going to visit the Museum of Earth's Heroes, and wouldn't you know it, there's a very interesting statue out front. It's none other than our boy Olibu. Oh, the mad lad Toyotaro, he did it! He canonized Olibu for the manga! Now, while we are thinking this is supposed to be just an Easter egg, we do wonder who he fought against all those years ago to get that statue. Demons? Well, apparently, that's why the Earth's nations united in considering that Daima is introducing all new law. Maybe this is some sort of connective tissue. It's good to see him acknowledged. He was always one of our favourite characters from the Otherworld tournament. Filler. I know it's filler, but still. In the same vein, we can see the statues of Master Mutaito, Mr. Satan, Kid Goku, albeit without facial details, as well as the original Great Saiyaman. The guide points out how many of these heroic figures decide to keep their identities a secret and ignore the possible prospects of fame and fortune for the sake of saving the world. This prompts a discussion between the colleagues of Trunks at the lunch break time. They are wondering what the purpose of hiding your identity is. What good does it do? The son of Vegeta initially seems to be disinterested in the whole exchange and is mercifully spared from having to keep up this conversation when suddenly one of the high schoolers announces that a shooting of the Clean God movie is taking place right now. Trunks and his friends decide to have a look, and indeed, the movie is indeed being made, with tons of cosplayers and fans of Clean God watching. But what's this? The police arrive at the scene. It turns out that some thieves were not keeping to the script and robbed the museum, trying to blend into the crowd. Not only that, but they stole costumes and masks from the cosplayers. That is no good. One of the thugs makes the mistake, though, of trying to get Trunks in as a hostage, who delivers a painful elbow into the gut. His devious comrades are trying to run, and our hero wants to go after them. But he gets stopped by Clean God himself, who tells him not to use his powers as he will get exposed. How does he know? Well, after giving this advice to the boy, the superhero begins to beat the ever-living daylights out of the bad guys, making us question if he really is just an actor after all. He also does a lot of cleaning puns along the way, and I mean a lot of them, and I fully appreciated them. Anyway, the leader of the bunch is trying to get the tour guide as a hostage now, but the superhero deals with him without any issue, explaining that the reason himself and his peers hide their identity is to protect their families and loved ones. Well, this makes Trunks start to idolize him. I mean, who could blame him? The guy has such a strong chin. And to be fair, the filming crew is also quite shocked that their actor might be the real deal after all. Once the criminal leader is dealt with and humiliated, we then return to Capsule Corp to discover that Trunks has purchased the newest Clean God video game, much to Goten's delight. Then, the younger son of Goku suggests that the two of them could do some superheroing of their own, but he doubts his friend would be all that interested. But to his surprise, he agrees, and they decide to design their own super suits. We're also getting some non-speaking cameos from Vegeta, Bulma, and then of course Whis, which is quite nice. It isn't their story, but we know that they exist here. Also, whilst designing the suits, we know whose idea it was to use the classic over-the-pants motif, and turns out it was Goten, who was a big fan of vintage superheroes. They also came up with their names, kinda to honor Gohan, but also they do add a little bit more, as they say, with X1 and X2. Trunks takes the executive decision of being X1 because he's older and he is the leader, a little bit to Goten's dismay though, who reluctantly asks the Capsule Corporation to make the suits for them. It is a bit weird, but I do think it's mainly because they don't want Bulma to suspect too much, and maybe this explains why she gets so mad. But anyway, we're getting another treat because for the first time, we are taken to Mr. Satan's dojo. That's right. It seems that the students over there are really training. It's not a joke. We can finally see both Mr. Satan and Videl actually doing some work and training. Well, it's a shame that the thing we are seeing the daughter of the champ do at the moment is just giving food to the trainees, but hopefully we'll get to see more of that place and her doing some actual fighting. And what's interesting is that we have even more cameos. Amongst the students, you can clearly see Ikose and Idasa. I guess their growth spurt wasn't as dramatic as Goten and Trunks' because they didn't really seem to age all that much. Still, the biggest revelation is that Clean God is in fact Gohan, and this is what you might have seen from other reviews. And he is working for Mr. Satan, replacing an actor who got sick. And that this magnificent chin is fake, it's not real. I don't know what to believe anymore, guys, really. The pun should have been a dead giveaway, but we should have seen this coming. But in all seriousness, the reason why the artist formerly known as the Great Saiyaman didn't want Trunks to reveal is actually quite endearing, as he remembered his own high school hardships once his colleagues discovered his powers. We never really witnessed this part of the story all that much. It kind of blended in with the Boo saga, but it is interesting that the manga is addressing the fact that there was some sort of hardship for Gohan. Now obviously, while initially Gohan seems to be tired of his new side job, you can see that he is enjoying being the Clean God just that little bit. They also decide not to tell Bulma about this whole incident, not to worry her, as ultimately nothing really serious went down. While they are having this family conversation, Mr. Satan then points out that it's time to pick up Pan from kindergarten, which prompts Videl and Gohan to run off to, well, go and pick her up from kindergarten. Seriously, these two can really do with some parenting classes, seriously. They're still working on it. I'm pretty sure both Hercule and Piccolo are available, I'm just saying, they could do it. There's a new threat to the city of a mean-looking biker gang causing chaos amongst the city, but what's this? A talking billboard of Clean God blocking the way of the evildoers? No, that's Saiyaman X1 and X2, now in full colour, ready to beat up their first ruffians, and with that, the one-shot ends. And I think so, right? It's called a one-shot, which means we're not getting a part 2, right? But anyway, what do we think? Well, simply put, it's cute. We're not going to tell you that this is the most novel thing that has ever appeared in Dragon Ball ever. It's built on a lot of tired cliches and tropes, but I'm always happy to see these two teens, Goten and Trunks, having a lead role, you know? It's their story, and it's their time to shine. And I think the story does a good job of telling us why Trunks even agreed to go along with this escapade in the first place. It was Goten's inspiration. His initial reluctance is kind of true to his character as well, as he is much more bothered with how people view him than in the case of his future counterpart. He was always a bit of a show-off, which kind of exposed his insecurities in later life, fragile masculinity maybe. So seeing that evolution is kind of nice. Seeing Goten as the more stoic and more strongly opinionated of the two here, that's nice too. And I will never stop saying this, but if there is one character that Toyotaro has greatly improved, it is Goten. Making him the more balanced and confident of the duo was a fantastic idea, and in some ways, he really does feel like the most emotionally mature member of the male Son line. Yes, the story is a little bit too predictable, but again, I think the goal of the story was to show us that little bit more slice of life, rather than focus on too much action. Let's be real. None of these criminals pose any threat to our heroes whatsoever. That wasn't the point of the arc though. It was more about Trunks' evolution and putting some values into his head, and properly too, in a way that boys would understand. And we do know that even with his brattiness, he is a good kid with a strong sense of justice. He just needed a little bit more of a push, you know? And in a way, it's kind of ironic that by trying to discourage him from showing off his powers, Gohan has pushed him into doing that, following his own destiny. It's so hilariously poetic that it's almost rhyming. Now, part of this thinking that Goten would do that on his own, should Trunks not have this particular experience himself, it's still though entertaining to see them brainstorm over the relatively simple designs of their suits, having fun with coming up with the names and ending with a compromise, actually as a team. Which is logical, because, well, they're still best friends. The two have grown to become their own people. They no longer feel like swappable characters, which I think is one of my favourite parts of this story told in this timeline. Also, the Easter eggs, very cool. It's enough to just make you go, oh, that thing. Oh, that's cool, nice. And it doesn't take attention away from the story. We don't feel Toyotaro catching our heads and turning them into some pointless throwaways to the past is a bad thing. It's nice to see these little glimpses into Earth's past, learning that Olibu does in fact exist on Earth and is an Earth hero. This one-shot adventure is kind of what we originally thought the Dragon Room would exist for. Those supplemental stories giving our different perspectives of different characters, you know, aside from Goku and Vegeta. In an ideal world, if the anime and manga were getting a divorce, as it were, this would be the way to go for them to complete each other. It's kind of funny that this is the first time in almost 7 years where we've had an overlap between the two mediums actually go down, disregarding the movies, of course. I wish we could have done more of this and had more of this. I'm also afraid that a lot of you will overlook it because it doesn't have Black Freezer in it, and honestly, just give it a read. It'll only take you 10 minutes. It's free as well. For something that costs nothing, has these early Dragon Ball AF Papaya Man vibes, it's not too bad. I do have a feeling that Toyotaro does enjoy drawing these characters, as he mentioned in various interviews that he would love to go on a full-on spin-off mode adventure with them. And honestly, I think I would really want to look at it. It's kind of fitting that he would focus on the next generation of the heroes and had a larger creative freedom over there as well, being the new lead of the show. Honestly, it wouldn't hurt to give these two a proper big crisis to deal with on their own. I think they've earned the chance, and honestly they could do with a villain that follows them on their own. I also really want to see them work together with Hedo. It just writes itself. As for the ending thoughts, I don't know. I felt adequately entertained, as this was a nice bonus to have in between of the Daimler episodes. Also, there is always something nice to see Toyotaro's drawings of West City. Of all of his backgrounds, these are some that I like the most. It's clear that this might be a little bit of a passion project of his, a personal preference. So, if you are in the mood for a better Dragon Ball, just give this one shot a shot. Once again, it's available for free and doesn't even require a lot of prior knowledge of the manga itself to even get into. It functions perfectly, indeed, as its own short story. And hopefully, not the last one we see from this new author. Anyway, what do you folks think? What characters would you like to see in installments like this? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!